What is going on, everybody, and welcome to the RPS Around the Rim NBA DFS show. Again, we're back, and I'm your host, JSU, bringing back my boys. First off, we got Hoop. Hoop, what's going on, man? I haven't seen you in a while, it feels like.
Oh, I think it was 2 days ago, but I mean, hey, I'll take it.
Felt like forever, Hoop, all right?
I know. Hey, we reunite today. That's all that matters. And we have, a five-game NBA slate with a lot of injury news. And, we got probably the biggest piece already with Kawhi Leonard being ruled out. So that makes things interesting for the Clippers, which we'll touch on throughout the show. But, there's, it's important to dig deep into these slates and these teams because we're seeing some funky stuff already. We saw the Nuggets the other day. They just never went back to their starters except Michael Porter Jr. Just let him go bonkers. And he continues to look phenomenal. Lakers just playing with no urgency whatsoever. Adds a ton of risk. Sounds like LeBron and AD are going to play today, but it's tough going there, man, with what we've seen so far from the Lakers. So, we're going to try to capitalize on some spots we feel comfortable with. We were kind of talking pre-show. So, that brings guys like Damian Lillard into the conversation. He's going to play a crap ton of minutes. They have a ton to play for. In normal slates, Lillard's probably not a priority over some of these other studs, but today that might be different. We're gonna dive in and see what we can find here.
Yeah, I tend to agree with you on that. At first look, Dame, besides on FanDuel where point guard is just so weak, Dame wasn't really falling into any of my builds like on Draftkings, and now I'm kind of reconsidering that because I think honestly he might be like the first or second best spend up. When you're talking about like the 10K range on the slate, as crazy as that may sound, but we'll get into it. We'll talk about that game. And, we got AP. AP's back. What's going on, AP?
What's going on, JSU? Yesterday was – I think I ended up being the bubble boy again, like the guy right on the money line, which, hey, man, it happens and allows us to bounce back hard. Yesterday – I don't know, JSU, we got to give ourselves some credit. Like we didn't talk up who are the studs? Joel Embiid. Obviously with Simmons out, he's going to get a good bump, but we didn't talk him up. And he did not do anything yesterday. 41 DraftKings points. What's crazy, just looking back, there's a few smash spots that kind of underwhelmed. Shea was terrible, starting like 0 for 7. That guy is just brutal. Tilts me so hard. But the top scorer on the slate was Ish Smith. Tough to believe, but if you played Ish and Troy Brown, you probably won all the money yesterday. And one of the other things is I wish I would have played him, but when we were talking about that matchup for Philly, we were talking about Tobias Harris and how he would have been a great pivot off of Embiid, and he was the second highest scorer on the slate. Now I can't victory lap it because I didn't play him, but it is what it is. I like this slate. I think we got a lot of really nice spots, and it should be fun. Hopefully it's not too crazy of a slate. Hopefully these coaches kind of, allow these rotations to be what we think they're going to be.
Yeah, for sure. And Tobias Harris was someone who I unfortunately, like you, didn't play on DraftKings. I did have him in my core on FanDuel because he was just way too cheap. So I was happy about that. And then Ish Smith took me to the promised land on my main team because I had a nice 6 from Rashawn Holmes when he went out with that back injury in the second quarter. So Ish Smith actually helped me cash in my main team, which, I was just really lucky that happened. But I will say we talked about Ish Smith. We talked about how the game was, the perfect type of matchup for him. So I was pretty happy about that. And then, Alec Burks from Philly, I kind of touched on as being one of the main beneficiaries from a minutes perspective. And we saw it. He got, I think, 26 or 27 minutes. He saw like a 17-minute bump from when Ben Simmons was fully healthy and playing. So that felt good. He helped me out cash in that lineup as well. So I was pretty happy about that. Outside of the Holmes injury news, which I can't do nothing about. Like, what can you do when a guy gets injured in the second quarter with 6 minutes to go. He just came in 2 minutes ago for his second quarter run and then just gets injured 2 minutes in. So that kind of stunk. But hey, we move on. So let's kind of dive in, guys. We get the first game, which in my opinion is the most interesting game on the entire slate, which is the Clippers versus the Trailblazers. The Trailblazers have something to play for, right? They're playing for that 8th seed. They're, I think, a game back now. I think the Suns are 2 or 2.5 games back of them in Memphis as well. But I mean, they're kind of the team I expect to kind of get that 8th seed. And it really helps now. Kawhi Leonard's out. I mean, we have to think Portland is going to win this game. But the question is, can the Clippers keep it close? And Hoop, I'm going to start with you. From a cash side, when you see Kawhi Leonard out, I mean, a lot of people sometimes think blowout risk. Do you think about any of that when you're building cash lineups?
I mean, it depends on the team. I mean, not in this situation. I mean, it's still 3-point spread, 230 total. You know, that's more what I'm thinking, opposed to, you know, trying to predict a blowout in this spot. I mean, as soon as you hear Kawhi Leonard's name as being out, you immediately want to go to Paul George, and I think that makes sense today. Should have a huge role. He's been playing a ton of minutes, 36, 37 minutes in his last 2 games. He should have all the usage he can handle. He's a premier play on the slate, and he's not very expensive, which is nice. And it brings other guys into the conversation, like Reggie Jackson. Hasn't really had the role that we thought he'd have with some of these injuries on the Clippers. Played 1 game pretty well. Last game didn't play a ton of minutes. But you have to imagine he gets back in the mix here with Kawhi out and Patrick Beverley out. And he's really cheap around the industry. Some other names we kind of talked about were Lou Williams. It's tough, man. He's only played 20 minutes in his first 2 games. The first one was a blowout. The second game was right there with Dallas. I mean, it was a close game all the way through. Only played 20. Have to imagine he gets up to like mid-20s in the spot, right? I mean, I can't imagine them just rolling him out 20 minutes again today. I mean, if he gets to mid-20s, I think he's a good play. I mean, he's capable of putting up a lot of points, a lot of fantasy points in a hurry. So for me, it's Paul George, Reggie Jackson, Lou Williams. I mean, Lou Williams probably more as a tournament play. And I mean, there's other guys you can look at too, but I don't think we're going to need to on this slate. We're going to have other value as well, like JaMychal Green, maybe, but I think I'd rather go with some of those Heat guys that we'll talk about a little bit later.
Yeah, interesting. You bring up Lou Will, and I think the minutes. I mean, he's a guy who I think generally, after you see Paul George from the Clippers, I think people generally go to like the Lou Wills. Harrell's not in, obviously he's still out, but like I think people generally go Paul George, then Lou Will. They're going to see the 20 minutes and 20 minutes, and they're going to maybe get a little scared. And I hope that keeps his ownership down for tournaments, because I do want to roll him out in tournaments. It also helps that like he's kind of near guys like Goran Dragic, who's questionable, who if he plays, I think will be popular. Tyler Hero. There's a couple guys in that range who, I expect to garner some ownership, but I do think he will be somewhat popular. I just hope we can somehow keep his ownership down a little bit, maybe by that, the 2 20-minute games. Hopefully people are afraid of the minutes. But AP, I want to bring you in, from a GPP side, what do you think about these Clippers? I mean, obviously Paul George is in play in any format, but what about the rest of them?
Yeah, I mean, the thing about Paul George is I just think he's a lock play. I think you lock him into all formats. I mean, he could absolutely break you if you don't play him. The guy, I agree with you guys, the guy that's interesting is Lou Will. When we look at this season and when Kawhi Leonard has been sitting, Lou Will, I mean, he's seen 38-plus minutes in some of these games. Like, there's no reason why he's not playing more minutes right now. Maybe he was in the doghouse the first couple of games. I don't know. But it would not surprise me to see Lou Will play 30-plus minutes today, because that's what he's done in the past when either Kawhi Leonard or Paul George sit. It's actually been Lou Will and Montrezl Harrell that have really picked it up in the second unit, and then they play pretty much the entire fourth quarter. And so you get a ton of more minutes in the second half. And we have no Montrezl Harrell, obviously. So I think Lou Will could be one of those difference makers in tournaments. I don't think he's going to be crazy popular. Like if he would have seen 28 minutes last game, I think he would be a very popular play. So there is some risk minutes-wise. We don't know exactly what Doc Rivers is going to do, but I can't imagine him not seeing a more significant role today. I think the other guy, obviously, Reggie Jackson, you guys mentioned him. And then Marcus Morris. I think Marcus Morris is going to play big minutes. For me, like, I'm not a big Marcus Morris guy, but he is going to have more shots to put up. And he's really cheap on DraftKings. He's like 4,500. And I love the matchup. I love playing fours against this Blazers team. They're not, too defensively sound at that position. I think he has a much better matchup than like a Zubac does, and Zubac went nuts last game. Hard pressed to think he does it back to back, but man, the guy's been playing good. And he's going to need to be out there to match up with Nurkic. So, and then on the Blazers side, I don't know, this could be one of those games again where Dame Lillard just goes off. Like if this game is close and if we have a scoring battle between Paul George, and then it would be Dame Lillard on the Blazers side. I mean, those two guys alone could break the slate, and you could be tilting if it pans out like that, the later games. Like if Dame Lillard does what he did his last time out, which he definitely can do. We saw him go through a stretch of like 5 games where he put up like, I think 45 or 50 points straight in like five straight games in a row. This is one of those matchups where Lillard could go out and do that again. And so when we're looking at the studs up top, I actually like Dame Lillard more than, Giannis and more than Luka tonight. So I think that's another interesting play in tournaments. And then the other guy that I have interest in is Yusuf Nurkic on the Blazers side. Whiteside is doubtful, I believe. Nurkic was already playing big minutes, but what I feel is that solidifies his minutes and his role. And, we could see 35 plus from him today.
Yeah, you guys talked about Ivica Zubac. And in his last 2 games, he's played 25 and 24 minutes. He has went 7 for 9 from the field and 10 for 10 last game from the field with 12 and 15 rebounds. I mean, he's playing real well, but it's not like he's seeing 30 plus minutes. I mean, he's doing this in somewhat limited time. It is impressive. I think he's in play, but again, remember, he was like flawless from the field the last 2 games. So if that continues and he's taking 9 shots and he's making 7 or 8 of them, he's probably going to do well, even at 5,300 if he's rebounding at that rate as well. But it's not someone who I'm like forcing in my stacks. I think it's, more secondary piece. But I'm sure we'll get some questions on him. Again, in this matchup too, he's averaged about 17 minutes the last 2 times they face each other. He's averaged 25 DraftKings points. I mean, it's not bad, honestly. So he has done well in this matchup as well. So he's interesting. I think Yusuf Nurkic from the Portland side is a really strong play today. I like him as a spend up. I'm with you guys, Dame Lillard, especially on FanDuel, where FanDuel is just point guard is awful. At least on DraftKings, there are certain guys who you can find at the top who are point guard eligible, like Dame Lillard, LeBron James, CJ McCollum's point guard and shooting guard. So like there's multiple guys on FanDuel. It's like Dame Lillard, and then it goes down to Brogdon and Rubio, and then after that, like Dragic and Bledsoe. So like it really drops off after Dame. So I think Dame is a really, really strong play on FanDuel, but I like him as well on DraftKings. Anything else though, guys, from this game? Anything?
I agree with the Zubac take. I don't think he's a bad play today. Like they're going to need him out there. And, he's a guy that typically doesn't play a lot of minutes, but I feel good about him getting at least in the mid-20s and is a very good fantasy producer. So I don't mind that call. I mean, not a core play type guy, but definitely somebody to throw in the mix in this game. I mean, he's going to have to be out there with Nurkic, and Nurkic is going to play a ton of minutes today with Whiteside likely sidelined today.
Yeah, for sure. Someone in the chat just said JSU is your Burke call from yesterday. I mean, I'm not going to put Ivica Zubac in my Burke call. First of all, Burke was like 3,700. Zubac is like priced up.
Yeah.
5,300 is a little different story. But I will say he is in play. Like if I'm stacking this multiple ways, like you could definitely throw in some Zubac. You know what I mean? If you're trying to rotate this game in a stack. So I'm not going to hate on it. Any Landry Chamet, last thing, he started last game. He's very cheap on both sites. I think he's 3,300 on DraftKings, and I think he's min price on FanDuel, but he's point guard eligible. Whereas on DraftKings, he's shooting guard, small forward. No one really talked about him. Anyone hoop for cash games? Is he in play?
Oh, God, I'm trying to leave some spots open for the Miami Heat news. Like, if Dragic is out along with Nunn and Butler, like, you're definitely going to want to have at least 2, 3, maybe even 4 Heat guys. So I don't want to lock in Chamet, a low upside guy, but obviously should play the minutes. So I'm going to say no for me, but I can see the argument as to why he's in play here today.
Yeah, that makes sense. AP, any interest in Chamet for you, tournaments or anything?
No, I think the guy I'd rather play is JaMychal Green off the bench, who could see, extended run, especially if they need a little bit more size in there. He can obviously hit the 3 too. He's not seeing big minutes, but he could see. I mean, against the Lakers, he saw 28, so we could see something like that from him. And he gets peripheral stats. Chamet, he's just like a raw scoring type of guy, and if he's not hitting shots, he has a really low floor. So that's my main concern.
Yeah, so I mean, when I was building my Dame lineup on DraftKings, I think I'm pretty sure Chamet made it in there just because I needed someone cheaper than Morris from the Clippers to kind of make it all work the way I wanted it to. So I think he's in play from that standpoint. Like if you're playing on DraftKings and you're stacking this game and you're going Dame, who's like 10K, I mean, it definitely helps make it kind of work. So I think he's okay for tournaments. It's, again, not someone I'm trying to force in. But I think we touched on that game, boys. Let's move on to the next game, Utah versus Denver. Utah, interesting, yesterday just kind of like threw in the towel before the game. They rested almost all their starters except for Joe Ingles, who only played 16 minutes. So I would assume, like everyone's going to play today. Do they play their, full allotment of minutes? I don't know. I'm assuming they will, or what they've been doing prior to that rest game they had. And then Denver for no reason. I mean, they rested Paul Millsap probably because he's just like old veteran. That's fine. But then Jokic doesn't play more than like 24 minutes, I think, last game. And the game was close. The game was a 5-point game going into the fourth quarter. So that's a little weird. MPJ, like someone already brought up, he was the only one who saw over 30 minutes, and they just kind of wrote him. I mean, for me, I'm definitely going back to MPJ, even at the price tag. I hope people see Utah and they just kind of look away with the price, because this dude is balling right now. Like, I mean, I've been riding him every single slate, and I'm not going to stop until he fails me, I think. But AP, why don't you start on this game?
Yeah, that was kind of weird what the Jazz did. I mean, they're right now, I believe they're in the 5th seed. I'm just pulling it up.
Yeah.
Yeah, 5th seed. They're what, 2 games back from the Nuggets, maybe 2.5. Like if they get the win yesterday, then they get to play the Nuggets today. I mean, they getting that 3 seed, it should be a priority in my opinion. I mean, if they maintain where they're at, they're most likely going to play the Rockets. And it doesn't matter if you're 4th or 5th. Obviously, there's no home court advantage or anything like that. But getting that 3rd seed just seems like a huge priority. Maybe they just threw in the towel and they don't think it's possible. But who knows? On the Nuggets side, I believe, Jamal Murray has been questionable like every single slate, and he hasn't played yet. I can't imagine that he plays today, but you got to wait for news. I mean, MPJ has been balling, and he's priced up. I don't think people are going to play him, but again, the guy just gets it done. He gets the peripherals. He's been putting up, the raw scoring. I mean, he's got a double-double in his last 3 games, and, he's getting, the stats on defense. He's getting blocks, steals. He's scoring, and he's getting rebounds. And this Jazz team, they haven't been that great defensively. I mean, they're not as good as they once were. So I love the idea of going back to MPJ. And a few builds I'm looking at where it's more of a balanced route, where I'm avoiding some of these studs, where I'm locking in guys like Paul George. MPJ fits in really well in that type of build. And if he gets us another 50+, that's going to be exactly what I need. And it's going to put you in a position to take down tournaments. So I like MPJ. I think Jokic is fine too. I'm not afraid of the matchup against Gobert. He hasn't looked as good. And especially if Murray's out, I think you go back to MPJ, you go back to Jokic, and then I think Monty Morris is also interesting. He's only 4.4K. But I got a lot of interest in the Nuggets side, and even against this matchup, I mean, the total looks good in this game. My only concern would be Malone and doing weird stuff with the rotations. But obviously with MPJ, what we saw, Malone let him play, almost the entire game. So you gotta think that trend continues.
Yeah, for sure. And now, bringing it to you? What are you thinking with this Utah Denver team game? I mean, like Denver rested their start. Really rested a bunch of guys. They kind of only played like 24 minutes ish. Everyone kind of played that except for MPJ, really. So what are we doing with this team? Like I'm assuming in cash games, are you just staying away from this team, or what are you doing?
Well, I feel comfortable going back to him. I mean, it was a back-to-back game, and Mike Malone has been known to do weird things, but I just can't imagine him doing it again back-to-back games for them. Runs the risk of pissing off some of these guys. Think Jokic wants to sit in a bubble and only play 24 minutes a game? Like, that's not going to happen. Like, he's going to get back to his normal minutes. It's a close spread here, 1.5 points, so game should stay close. No problem going back to him. Jokic, I think, is a fine cash game play. I think he's fine in tournaments. Porter Jr., I think, is an elite tournament play. I think people are going to see the increased price tag and kind of get scared. I think that's a mistake. I mean, guy is just absolutely smashing. But we need the news, though, too. We got to see it. And even if Murray does come back, I just can't imagine him, stepping into a huge role and slowing these guys down at all. So it's MPJ, it's Jokic on that side. And then on the Utah side, Donovan Mitchell just ruled questionable. So what time is this game? It's the second game. If he were to sit, be a boost for, a few of those rotational guys, and then Jordan Clarkson as well. So probably won't get that news before the first game starts, but if he's out, guys like Ingles and Conley and Clarkson, I would like quite a bit more. So we'll see what happens there. But yeah, totally fine going back to the Nuggets guys, and probably only like Jokic and Porter Jr. I don't really see myself playing anyone else for the Nuggets.
Yeah, I agree with you. And if Donovan Mitchell's out 100%, those guys, Ingles, Conley, Clarkson, they get bumps. They're definitely more in play if Mitchell gets ruled out. AP, let's bring it to you. What are you thinking with this game?
The
Utah side. You didn't really touch on the Utah side.
Yeah, I'm not really interested in that side. I don't like the matchup against the Nuggets. I do agree with Hoop. If Mitchell's out, I'll have some interest in Mike Conley. Conley's been playing well. I hate playing these Jazz players. They like tilt me more often than not. So I would rather, reduce my exposure to them unless Donovan Mitchell's out. Clarkson, I think, would be fine too off the bench. But really, there's just too many other spots I like a little bit more. And so I'll probably reduce my exposure to them.
Okay. I just got Mangone's sending me text messages right now of quotes from Michael Malone. This was after, I think, August 4th's game, where he said that he didn't even want to play Jokic tonight, which is why Jokic didn't come off the bench in the late fourth quarter. So, I mean, that's just something to note. I mean, it definitely makes Jokic more of a stay away for me when you got the coach kind of talking about that, like after a game. Like, I don't want to pay $9,200 for a stud who could possibly not get off the bench in the fourth quarter, even in a close game. Like, that's just not what I want to do.
Here's what Malone could be doing, though. Like, they're in the third seed right now, and they're only a game back behind the Clippers. Like, the difference between if you get the number 2 seed, you got to play either Dallas or the Blazers. If you get the number 3 seed, you're playing, the Jazz or the Thunder as it stands right now. Like, who would you rather play? I mean, it's kind of like trying to pan out and predict scenarios is tough, but still, like, I would rather try to lock up that 3 seed with how the current standings are.
And the other thing, it was it was the second leg of a back-to-back. And, they sat out Millsap. Like Millsap, older guy, they didn't want to run him. Obviously, they didn't want to give Jokic his full minutes. I mean, this is an island game. So, I mean, I think you can count on full normal minutes as long as the game stays close.
All right. So you guys are definitely a little more comfortable with paying for Jokic than I am. But let's move on. We got the LA Lakers versus the Indiana Pacers. Now, this game to me is just, I feel like it's just going to be the game that I end up staying away from. Maybe outside, like if I have the money to pay up for like a LeBron or an AD on FanDuel. But like other than that, I'm probably staying away from it. It just seems boring to me. Like the Lakers guys, are they going to play LeBron and AD more than 30 minutes? I don't think so. I think they see 30 minutes. I think that's exactly what they see. You don't get the upside or the minutes upside of LeBron playing 35 in a close game or AD playing 35, in my opinion. And then you got the Pacers, who their best player, arguably one of the best players in the bubble since this restart, has been TJ Warren, and he's questionable. I mean, what are we doing here? Hoop, I'll start with you. What are we doing here with the Pacers side, specifically if TJ Warren is out?
Yeah, if TJ Warren's out, I mean, you get a boost a guy like Brogdon, Oladipo. Still, I just don't know if I'd be overly excited. I kind of agree with what you said, out of the gate. Just not a game I have a ton of interest in. On either side, the Lakers have just looked like garbage. And, we saw, Anthony Davis without LeBron James last game and just didn't look all that impressive. So, I mean, if I build my teams and I can land on LeBron or Anthony Davis, I mean, I'm going to consider it, but there's just no way I'm building around those guys or for that matter, anyone in this game. If TJ Warren's out, then maybe, and it would be probably Brogdon and Oladipo, which I'll give, a little more consideration to, probably more so Brogdon than Oladipo, because they're just not going to push Oladipo, obviously, over that, 28, 29, 30 type minute range. So it would be a boost for Brogdon. Maybe becomes a little more of a priority, but we have some really good spots. I mean, this next game that we're going to talk about, the Miami Phoenix game, I like a ton, and there's going to be a lot of pieces in that game that I'm going to get exposure to. So I just don't see myself going here, to be honest with you, for the most part. Yeah,
and Turner, I didn't even hit on this. So Miles Turner is also questionable.
Yeah.
I mean, if he's out, are you playing any? I think it's Batazi, Gogo, whatever his name is.
Gosh, I haven't looked at the price tags. I mean, if they're bottom of the barrel, I mean, if they're down in that 3K range, I mean, I'd consider it.
He's 3K.
He's 3K. Yeah, I mean, he would be in the conversation. And he did play 11 minutes last game. I mean, if Turner's out, what does he play? 20, 25 minutes? I mean, yeah, I guess I would consider him if Turner's out as well.
All right. In the Lakers side, you're just kind of staying away from unless we get some news.
Yeah, just I don't know. I mean, just they haven't looked great. I'd rather spend on, like we keep talking about, like Dame Lillard, or I mean, I'd even probably spend on Luka or maybe even Giannis. I don't know. The Lakers guys. I mean, the one thing I will say, Anthony Davis is cheap on FanDuel. He's 9.4K at power forward, and the steals and blocks can go a long way. They go a lot further on FanDuel than on DraftKings, more fantasy points. So maybe I'd consider Anthony Davis on FanDuel, but I'd have to, it comes down to roster construction, I guess, and what value we have. Yeah,
that makes sense. In AP, I'm going to bring it to you. And first off, on FanDuel, you got LeBron James, he's 10K, and then Giannis 1,000 more. A small forward is a weak position on FanDuel, really, especially if TJ Warren's questionable. No one's going to, not a lot of people are going to play TJ Warren in their lineups if we don't get news early, because he's high enough and there's no one in his range to pivot to. So really and truly, I think everyone's going to go up to the top and down to the bottom. Are you prioritizing that extra 1,000 to get to Giannis, or would you be okay with LeBron at 10K?
I'd probably want to prioritize to get to Giannis on FanDuel. But with this game, I mean, Frank Vogel has no reason to play these guys big minutes. And the thing about AD is, he struggles when LeBron's not out there. he has yet to show that he can kind of take over. And part of it could have been like against the Rockets. He struggled against that small ball lineup. He had like 7 or 8 turnovers. I mean, they were pesky. They were all over him. And it's frustrating to see because you look at a matchup like that, and with a guy like AD, he should be able to absolutely smash and get whatever looks he wants. We didn't see it, but he does play better when LeBron's out there. But still, I see no reason why they need to push these guys. I mean, I think it's smart for Vogel to start monitoring minutes. Like if I'm the coach, I'm playing them 28 to 33. And, we haven't seen LeBron go over 35 yet in the bubble. And I see no reason why to play these guys. So I'm fading the Lakers. I liked it more when LeBron was questionable because we could have played Kuzma off the bench or one of these other guys. But now with all of them healthy, I don't have a lot of interest. Maybe Anthony Davis is a deep tournament play since he has showcased some upside with LeBron out there. And then, on the Pacers side, it's, the Lakers are comfortable playing at a slower pace right now since they're lacking on offense. We've seen them toughen up on defense, and their defense is still just okay. So I see this as kind of a get-right spot for the Lakers, and I think it's going to be a tough day for the Pacers. So I can't do it. This game is pretty much a fade for me unless we get some injury news.
Yep, I'm pretty much on board with you. This game, besides, like I said, if I needed that extra 1,000 from Giannis to LeBron to make my lineup look a little better in my eyes, then I would probably play him. But outside of that, I'm staying away from this game and the rest of my lineups. So let's move on, guys. We've got, Hoops game that he's been kind of, hitting at that he loves. Phoenix Suns versus the Miami Heat. A lot of value on the Miami side here. It looks like we're going to get Jimmy Butler out. Kendrick Nunn, for some reason, left the bubble. They say he's going to come back pretty soon, but still, he's not going to play obviously today. So, and Goran Dragic is questionable. So, I mean, if Dragic were out, then Iguodala becomes a much better play than he already is. Tyler Hero, Duncan Robinson, and in my opinion, they are already pretty good plays. Those guys, but if Dragic is out, I mean, they just don't have anyone else. So I would assume Dragic plays. He came back from this injury in the game he hurt it and still played after the injury. And then they gave him a rest, I think, just to kind of heal up a little bit the next game. So in my eyes, I think he does play unless, the injury was a little worse than they thought after the game. But Hoop, why don't you talk about this game and what you like?
Yeah, a lot to like, obviously, with some of these core pieces being out for the Heat. And, Tyler Hero is one of the first guys that kind of jumps out to me. Did get a little price increase, but he's been playing well. Played 33 minutes in the last game, finished with 32 fantasy points. Price is still modest. I think he's a strong play. Get Bam, very strong play. Real nice price on DK. He's 7.4, so definitely a building block. And then you get some Olynyk too. Olynyk's under 5K on DK, I think 4.9. So I mean, all three of those guys are strong plays. If Dragic is out, I think I'd even consider going to Jay Crowder, Iguodala. I mean, you're talking you could have 4 or 5, maybe 6 guys to consider from the Heat side. And then, the reason I like this game is because the Phoenix Suns actually have something to play for. I mean, they're not mathematically eliminated, and, they're going to want to win this ball game. So Booker, Rubio, Ayton, really like those 3 as well. I mean, Cam Johnson's been playing good amount of minutes. Let's see. Yeah, I mean, 40, 38, 36 minutes, and he's been producing. I think he's a strong play. So this is my favorite game by far, and honestly, there's 10 to 11 guys I have interest in.
Yeah, and it would make sense. Cam Johnson is just been playing really, really good basketball, and I mean, they're gonna ride him if he's playing well. I don't see why they would switch it up. So I expect him to keep seeing those big minutes, obviously barring foul trouble. And I like him, especially on FanDuel, where he's 4,500. He's still just way too cheap over on FanDuel. So I really like him over there. But how can you not like someone who's playing, 37, 38 minutes in meaningful games? May I add you? They're like you said, 2.5 games back of the 8th seed right now in the West. So they're still trying to win. I think Devin Booker is a real strong tournament play. 8,300 on DraftKings, but people are going to see the Heat. But there's no Jimmy Butler. Jimmy Butler's not going to be locking them up. And then obviously they're out. Another guard and none. But who are they going to really put on him? I mean, Iguodala is a good defender. I'm sure when he's out there, they might have him on him a little bit. But still, Devin Booker should be able to do really well in this matchup. I think he's my favorite spend up from the Phoenix side. I'd prefer him over Ayton. But outside of that, I mean, it's the Miami guys. Like you said, Kelly Olynyk is under 5K on FanDuel and DraftKings. So he's interesting on both sites, in my opinion. But AP, talk about this game and what you like.
Yeah, I think Bam is my favorite play on this game. We've seen him, average like 1.5 fantasy points a minute, and he gets a huge offensive usage bump with Jimmy Butler out of the lineup. And, he's coming off a game where he struggled. He kind of put up, he put up 22 against the Bucks in a tough matchup. And, hopefully people kind of, look at that and don't want to go back to him. But at 7,400, I just think he is an absolute smash play in this spot against the Suns. It's a fantastic matchup. Bam, to me, is kind of like Paul George, where I just want to lock these guys in every single lineup I make. And the other thing I've noticed when I'm playing around with some of these builds is, man, I end up with 3 or 4 Heat guys in my lineups, and I don't hate it. I don't hate it at all. I think Kelly Olynyk's in play. I think Dragic or Hero are in play. I think, honestly, Dragic, he always likes coming off the bench. So I think if he's in, I think Hero might get the start and Dragic out the bench, but we'd have to wait and see. For me, it doesn't really matter. He's gonna get to work no matter what. And he's going to get minutes no matter what, as long as he plays. And then the other guy, Iguodala, I think is going to see more minutes. I think they're going to I think Spoelstra would want him in to cover Booker. I think that makes the most sense. And so honestly, it should lead to more minutes for him. I would guess, in the 28 to 32 range. And he's cheap. He's 4.5K. He gets peripherals. He's going to get rebounds. He's going to get assists. He's not like a primary scoring option, but, we've seen him put up some points over the last few games. And so I love the Heat side. I think it's a game I'm going to have heavy exposure to. On the Suns side, honestly, I built a few lineups where I wasn't running it back with any Suns players, and I didn't hate my lineup at all because I'm prioritizing a few other people. But if I were to run it back with someone, it would be Devin Booker and it'd be DeAndre Ayton. These two guys are just the clear best options on the Suns side. Ayton has been, he's incredibly safe. Tougher matchup against Bam. I favor Bam in this matchup. But, definitely am going to have some exposure to Ayton and Booker. Rubio is kind of interesting, but he's not getting the minutes. He's like getting 25 to 28. So who knows what's going on there, but he's 6.4K on DraftKings. I think, as a deep tournament play, I would definitely get some exposure to him if you're stacking this game up. But otherwise, it's for me, it's Booker, it's Ayton, and it's the value plays on the Heat side.
Yeah, no doubt. I agree with you on Bam 100%. I love Bam today. I hope people see that bad game and they see the minutes and they just, say, nope, I'll just take the value, guys, because I love Bam in this spot. So I'm with you on that. Anything else from this game, guys?
No, just good all-around game for DFS. Definitely my favorite game on the slate.
Okay, before I'm going to have you guys rank the value for the Heat, but before I do that, again, guys, this is like my daily likes checkup. We have 309 people watching live right now and 77 likes. 77. If you guys want some gear, we got to get to that 150 at least. Come on, let's get to that 150. The viewers are going up right now. We got to get those likes up. There we go. I'm starting to see it now. Hit that like button. It helps us keep this show free. If you guys like this show, it helps us keep this show free. So, we obviously we appreciate it, but if you like this show, it's free right now. Hit that thumbs up. So guys, while they do that, I'm going to have you rank in order your, let's say top 3 Miami Heat values. So we're taking Bam out of it. Will everyone else for the Heat except Bam? Hoop, I'll start with you. If from a cash side, if you had to rank the value.
It'd be Olynyk, Hero, 1-2, and it might be like a 1A, 1B type thing. I really like both those guys. Then probably Crowder. I mean, I do like Iggy, but I'll give the edge to Crowder. Minutes should be very, very stable. And then, I mean, I guess if Dragic is playing, he's listed as questionable, he'd be right up there at the top as well.
Okay. Yeah. AP, what about you?
Yeah, I would say, I would say Kelly 0-1. It's a toss-up between Dragic and Hero. Let's say Dragic plays, I'm going to say 2, Hero 3. Oh, man. I'm going to say Iggy, then Duncan Robinson.
That's perfect. So when I look at this, I mean, I love that. I assume everyone's going to be on Hero. I hope that's what it is, because I hope Duncan Robinson comes in at just lower ownership than all these guys. Duncan Robinson can ball. He can shoot the heck out of the ball. He doesn't do a ton else, but I do like him, especially on DraftKings, where you get the little 3-point bonus. I'm in on shooters, especially over there. So, and then on FanDuel, he's like 4,100 or something like that. So he's super cheap over there. I hope people, I like Hero too. I'm with you guys. But I hope we could get a little lower ownership on at least one or two of these value Heat guys. And I think Robinson might end up being one of the guys that you may be able to get a little bit lower ownership to. But for me, I think it would be Dragic 1, obviously, if he plays, because he's questionable. And then Kelly O and Duncan Robinson, and then Hero in that order. So in the way I would attack Goran Dragic for any of you guys doing lineup construction is he's priced almost around where Tyler Hero is. So I would put him in the guard spot if we don't get this news in time. And then you can always pivot if he is out to Hero. But it's tough if you put him in the point guard spot and that 1:00 game goes, you can't pivot to Lou Will anymore on DK. So just something to think about if you guys are doing that. That's one thing that I like to do.
One last thing on this game. Against the Bucks, when the Heat were up big early, they were doing it because they were pushing the pace. They were sprinting down the court, getting layups, getting open looks. And Duncan Robinson was mic'd up, and man, he was, yelling at his players to go, go, go. And they were pushing it. So like, if I'm Spoelstra against the Suns team, I want to take that same approach, because this Suns team is not going to be able to come out in the second half and put up, the kind of defense that the Bucks did. So I think that the Heat are going to push the pace here, and I think this game is going to be juicy for fantasy.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. We got our good friend Slapshot Mo in the chat. He says Joker's trash. His trash can. He always gets there, though. You know it, JSU. Well, I don't think he's a trash can, first of all, but I think he's a really good basketball player. He does everything. He's just an all-around solid basketball player. The one problem with Jokic is he just never seems to be in, great shape. I think he looks decent, but he's never in that, supreme conditioning that, he should be in as a pro basketball player. I just don't really get it. I mean, whatever. He probably doesn't spend as much time in the gym as some of these guys. But, if he did, he would be at the top. As an all-around basketball player and a big, he would be at the top for me, one of the top few guys. But let's move on. We're at 142 likes. That's pretty solid, guys. Let's get to that 150. We got one more game to talk about, and that is the late game Milwaukee versus Dallas. 2 studs in this game. I'm assuming that most people are going to pay up for at least one of these 2 studs. Maybe both. If they're game stacked in this game, maybe they'd have both in their lineup. But we got Luka obviously at 11K, and then we got Giannis at 10.8. Both guys are great. Luka had a little disappointing game last time out. Maybe that keeps his ownership down a little against a tough Milwaukee team who plays pretty solid defense. AP, let's start with you. What are we doing with this game?
Yeah, if to be like completely transparent, my only problem with this game is both teams are healthy. We don't have any key players on either side that are going to miss, and we have other situations in these other games where you have key pieces that are out, and I want to prioritize some of those guys like the Paul George and the Bam, like I already said. And when I put Paul George and Bam in my lineup, it's very difficult to get up to Giannis or Luka. So for me, I'll be honest, like I'm probably going to be pretty underweight. Do I feel comfortable about it? No, but I like the way my lineups are looking without those guys. So I view it as this. I'm fading that 70-plus game. If these guys land in the 55 to 65 range, I think I'll be fine. I don't think it's going to kill me at all. If they put up like 70, 75 plus, then yeah, it's going to be a lot more difficult. But I'm pretty confident. I feel that the Bucks could use this spot as kind of a playoff tune-up game, and the Mavs, the same way. I really feel like we're going to see a little bit more defense. If you watch the Bucks in the second half against the Heat, they clamped down, and man, they were all over that team. And I don't know. I feel like we have yet to see the Bucks come out and play good defense. They've always had to adjust in the second half. I feel like they finally come out, they play good defense. I just feel like, maybe if I had to prioritize one of them, I'd probably go Giannis just because he's $200 cheaper on DraftKings. But I still think that, I think and I'm doing tournaments only, but I think I'm going to fade these guys because I'm prioritizing some of the other spots.
Okay, that makes sense. What are you thinking from a cash game perspective? Is there a spend up in this game?
Yeah, so I mean, my take on the Bucks kind of remains unchanged. Like, literally no motivation, like whatsoever. I mean, they're locked into where they're going to be. Any opportunity they get to play Giannis 25, 26 minutes, they're going to take it. Any opportunity they get to play Middleton 25, 26 minutes, they're going to take it. Like, if they don't make that run last game against the Heat, like those guys they're going to be in the 20s in terms of playing time, and I just don't want to take on that risk. So the Bucks are just too risky for me. I got all their guys back, like you guys touched on. Like, I don't think I'm going to any Bucks. Specifically on like DraftKings, I can't see myself doing it. On FanDuel, where we're going to have a ton of value, and maybe Giannis at small forward ends up working out. I don't think I'm going there. Not very likely. So the one play I do like is Luka on FanDuel. He's only 10-4. I kind of put him in there as a core. Might make an adjustment on that as I start to build lineups here and play around with the Clippers news. Might not have to go there, so might make a change on Luka as a core. But I do like his price tag at 10-4. Just have to see how roster construction works out. We got the Hassan Whiteside news that he's officially out. That broke a few minutes ago, so that might lead me to spend on a guy like Nurkic now at center, who I like quite a bit. So yeah, this game is just, man, it's risky, especially on the Bucks side. Maybe Luka, maybe like a Tim Hardaway Jr., if it works, but way more excited about the game we just talked about.
Okay, so from the Bucks side, I do agree with you. It is definitely risky. Perfect for tournaments, though. One guy who I think is going to get no ownership, and when I just read you what he's doing in this bubble, when he's seeing the minutes, it's just like, how is this guy not going to get ownership? And it might just be because there's, like Hoop said, really no motivation. People are maybe staying away a little bit from the other Bucks outside of Giannis. But Chris Middleton has been straight balling in this bubble. Like, he against Brooklyn, he obviously played only 16 minutes. So we're throwing that game out. But in the 3 games where he saw significant minutes, 33 and then 34 in his last in the other 2, he has pretty much dominated. Against Boston, he had 38 fantasy points. That, Boston's a tough team. But against Houston and Miami, he had 27 real points, 33 real points, 50 DraftKings and 53 DraftKings points. The guy has just been straight balling, and no one's going to play him. Like, on FanDuel, he's $7,100. Like, that is way too cheap for Chris Middleton. If he sees 34 minutes, he could he could crush in 34 minutes. Everyone on FanDuel is going to play Paul George. And then I think the FanDuel build is going to be play Paul George and then play a Hero, a Robinson, a Lou Will, someone in that cheaper range. I think that's going to be how the build construction works over on FanDuel. So on FanDuel, two things to do. If you love Paul George, you could be a little different by paying up for 2 spots. You could pay up for Chris Middleton and Paul George, or you could fade Paul George, play Chris Middleton, and then play like a Lou Will, to get some of that Clippers value. Or if you like the Heat guys better, play a Hero or a Robinson. But I think in tournaments, that's a real strong strategy, and Middleton's going to be overlooked. I specifically like him a little more over on FanDuel at his price tag. Don't hate him on DraftKings. It's, again, another scenario. Small forward position only. Paul George is the same way, small forward only. They're $300 difference. Everyone is going to get that extra $300 and pay for Paul George. If you want to be a little different, you could hope this Portland team blows out the Clippers and you pivot to Middleton. Maybe the Dallas-Milwaukee game stays close. He sees his minutes, and if he outscores Paul George, you're going to be ahead of a lot of people in tournaments. So it's just one strategy for tournaments, but I do like Middleton. I like that Bledsoe in the small amount of time that he saw, I think 23 minutes. He did pretty well in his last game. I assume that he gets a little more of a minutes boost because they said like they want to gradually increase him, and that's what they've kind of done in his first 2 games. I think 18, then 23. You assume he gets to anywhere from like 27 to 28 minutes, somewhere around there. And if that's the case, I think he's in play. I don't think you need him though. But outside of that, Giannis, Luka, I'm not going to hate on the spend ups. Like Luka a little more on FanDuel at his price tag. And Giannis a little more on FanDuel just because small forward's weak. But on DraftKings, I'm going to have a lot less just because I kind of like starting my lineups in that like 8K range, which is going to be the way I start most of my lineups. But guys, anything else from this game that we missed?
No, I don't think so.
All right.
Wouldn't it be interesting it would make more. So like they started Boban against the Clippers, which didn't make sense. But like if you want to just block the paint and, make it difficult on Giannis, wouldn't it make sense to start Boban in a game like this? You don't want Porzingis down there.
The problem is that Brook Lopez just stands out at the 3-point line, and Boban won't be able to get out there and guard him.
Yeah, I got you.
I get what you're saying though. It's just I don't think they're going to do it just because of the way Milwaukee's kind of built. And
I'm not saying play Boban. I just, Porzingis is kind of, his price is looking real nice there too at 8.4K. I like the Middleton call. I think a Middleton Porzingis combo would be ultra contrarian in stacks. I might have to run one of those today just for you, JSU.
Yeah, I like it. I like that. You get the 2 secondary studs, I would call it, from these 2 teams, and kind of get lower ownership and hope that like you said, you're fading like the Giannis and Luka 70 burger. You know what I mean? If they get 50 to 60, I think you're okay. You know what I mean? So I like that strategy. But boys, we got, over 150 likes. So we're going to give out some swag. I think, Hoop, I think it's your turn to scroll up and pick one of these guys to get some swag.
On my way up, and I've landed on Brock Erickson. And then his comment was JSU hammer coming down soon on likes. How ironic.
Well, there you go.
Brock Erickson.
Brock Erickson, you are the winner of the swag. Congrats to you. Hit up Big T. If you're in the Discord chat, hit him up in the Discord chat. Send him a message. If not, hit him up on Twitter at Big T44, and he'll hook you up. He'll get that out to you when he sends all the gear out. So congrats to you. But boys, I think that's it. I got to finish out, get my core plays up. My core plays will be up in probably about 5 minutes. So make sure if you're an RPS member, get over there and check those out. If you're not an RPS member, get over to Run Pure Sports, sign up, use the promo code, join the movement. It's still live, right, guys? We're still live. Join the movement promo code.
No, we're locked in now. It's our final pricing. So our locked in final pricing for life right now. So if you sign up right now, you're going to be rolled into that monthly price, $65 a month. Well, more details coming out real soon about how that's going to work.
Oh, that's even better. So get in for that locked in price for life at $65. This is the perfect time. Get in now before football season starts, because, once football season starts, we're going to be rolling out the football content, all the showdowns, everything. So get over there, check it out. But again, guys, we appreciate you hanging out with us. For me, JSU, AP,
whoa. What about slate breakers, man? I had a special one today.
You just interrupted my outro. You just totally interrupted my outro.
Because I got
the whole thing.
I got a guy that I think is going to break the slate.
Well, now we got to give slate breakers because my outro is just finished. I'm going to let AP do the outro once I'm done. All right, so let's give him slate breaker. AP, why don't we start with you, because you already have a guy who
maybe it's not that sneaky, but I think Bam Adebayo is going to put up a triple-double today, and I think he's going to break the slate.
Love it. I love it. Who? You got a guy?
Jokic. I think people are going to be off him after that 24-minute game. And obviously he's going to be needed against Gobert, so I think he breaks it down today.
All right, my boy Lou Will. He's dropping 40 fantasy points tonight against this Portland team. They struggle against the guards. You're going to see it, Lou Will. I think he sees 25-plus minutes, and I think he handles Portland in 25-plus minutes. So I like my guy Lou Will. But that's going to do it for us. Finally, we'll see you next time. Again, for me, JSU, AP, Hoop.